Hey there, this is Eldon McGraw with Riff It Up, and today my guest is Ed Emmerich of Dead Hour Noise, the guitar player. Hi, Ed.
What's up, Eldon?
How you doing, man?
Not too bad.
We've obviously known each other for quite a few years, but it's nice to catch up. I haven't seen you in a while, actually, in person.
It's been probably since before the pandemic.
I think you're right. So, Dead Hour Noise, okay, I know what you're all about, but for the audience, if you had to explain your sound, which is sometimes hard to do, I understand, what would that sound be? Well, how would you explain that to somebody?
I think the easiest way to narrow down Dead Hour Noise would be mathcore. There's elements of punk rock, progressive rock, a little odd time signature, dissonance. But we think about it as like a punk rock band. There's still a gnarliness to it. It isn't like totally, structured. I mean, it is, but it's still like a loud, noisy, obnoxious. It's a heavy band.
That's my kind of band. I like that. All those things I like. So let's talk a little bit about your other members of the band. Maybe a quick description. Of course, their name and what their instrument or their vocalist. Maybe a little background on each member.
Yeah. So Nick plays drums. Con does vocals. I play guitar. But on our studio recordings, I play bass. And we've been a three-piece for the last 5 or 6 years. Previously, we were a 5-piece and 4-piece. We've gone through some iterations, sure. But we've settled into this 3-piece situation pretty comfortably, and it makes life easier when we're touring, and just kind of like we're pretty productive as a 3-piece. We really get stuff done, and I think we're pretty much going to stick to that.
So talking about, you had 5 at one time, 3, obviously, I've been in bands. Tell me what the difference between 5 and 3 is. And I know every band's different, but there is a difference because I've experienced this.
So there's a difference. I think the biggest difference that I could mention, though, is that we're just a lot more grown up now than we were when we had 5 guys in the band. So obviously, you still get that depth with a bass player and a guitar player. It's a little limited with 3 guys. And it's kind of always like a dream to play in a band with, that kind of breadth. And it was awesome. It was, the songs were, really effective. But, sometimes probably the biggest thing related to being in a band is how much easier it is to schedule with 3 guys. Everyone's doing their own thing. But it's a lot easier to book tours. It's a lot easier to kind of do everything when you have less guys.
Yeah, it's true. The exponential growth of scheduling, like that 3, 4, 5, it is incredible. When when people are working, because it's not fully your moneymaker, of course. So.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about from a guitar perspective in this band. So obviously in the studio you're playing bass, but what about live? Tell me how you're kind of making sure that low end is there.
So I have an ABY switcher that that splits my signal in 2 and sends 1 through my guitar rig and 1 through the bass rig. So it's a pretty distinct sound. You hear a lot of grindcore bands do it, doom bands, sludge bands. I saw somebody commented on a video of us that were like the White Stripes with one more person.
That's a good one.
Yes. You do kind of hear that the parallel with the 2 tones live, and that's not on the studio. So the studio sounds like a 5-piece band. There's
sure.
2 guitars, bass, and the songs are a little different live, but it's fine. It's all catharsis anyway. So
yeah, of course. Let's go back to, you mentioned the studio. Obviously, studio, you and I love the studio. We love recording. Talk about your guitar approach in the studio. I mean, are you double tracking, are you triple tracking, whatever? Well, give me your kind of process.
So pretty like bare bones. I double track everything except for leads, which I guess I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but when I hear it, it sounds kind of crazy when you have like a lead come in over 2 guitars that are already there. So like I like to keep one guitar doing one thing, the other guitar doing the other thing. A lot of the parts in Dead Hour are kind of synced up, but there's, they deviate a little bit in the studio.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So when you're the only guitarist in this case in the band and you're double tracking, it sounds like you let it be a little loose instead of being exactly in sync to give it that little fuller sound.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Why is that important to you?
That's what the music I listen to is like. So, and to have a full guitar sound. If this was, like a 70s rock band, it's not a big deal. But we do really want a big sound all around, and you got to have two big guitars.
Right.
It's just more satisfying, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I like that sound too. Let's talk about a little tech talk. So, your guitar, your amp, all those kind of details, your pedals. Let's talk about the live setup right now first.
So live setup, I play an Epiphone Les Paul. Mine's a little different than this one.
What color is yours? I can't remember.
It's black.
Okay.
But it's got one of the things that I like to have on my guitars for both bands is the ability to split the coil.
Yeah.
So I love that like fat twang. Mm-hmm. So you don't hear it so much in heavy music anymore. I think like in like the 2000s you'd hear it a little bit more, but it does add like a different dimension.
Sure.
So that's pretty important. I don't use a ton of pedals in Dead Hour. I do use a sonic stomp to kind of control the low end, and I do always have the tube screamer going. Okay. A little bit I mess with a delay pedal just to kind of flesh out certain leads, but that's very sparsely. Dead Hour noise is pretty straightforward, just high gain.
Right. So when you go into a lead part, you're hitting a pedal generally though?
Not always, because there's not a ton of leads in Dead Hour.
Right.
There's a few like bends I'll kind of accentuate with a delay.
Yeah.
There's some stuff on Sleeping Dogs, our first full-length album, that has a little bit of a black metal sound. And within those leads, I'll definitely have that like fast tape delay going.
And what is what about your amp and?
Oh yeah, I got a Marshall JCM 900. Okay.
You've had that a long time, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I used to have a 2000, and I love that too. Just tons of problems with it.
Oh.
The 900, it's been rock solid, and I just love the tone I get out of it. I also in the studio had a VTM, PV VTM.
Okay.
That thing was a monster.
So when you're talking about your gear, you guys tour, so obviously having that be dependable is really important to you.
Oh yeah.
And why, has that been your experience? It sounds like it is, but
I've been fortunate. Yeah, I haven't had a ton of like gear failure on the road, and I've seen it happen with other bands, and it's a bummer,
Sure.
You hear guys having to find a guitar center, and I've been pretty fortunate to just have to buy strings or something and we haven't done a ton of touring, but we've gone to like a handful of like weekend tours, and we had like one pretty big like 2-week long, and I've been
Look, people can go a whole lifetime and not have that, so it's pretty special what you've done. So real quick question, you're on stage, you're rocking out, all of a sudden you break a string. What do you do? What does Ed do?
Well, you got to finish the song, and because you can't, you just make do with what you got. Sometimes it's pretty disappointing. Even there's a key part that you really want to hit right. I actually just a couple weekends ago I lost my pick, and had to finger pick the rest of the song. It's like a heavy breakdown with like dissonant chords.
That's tough with the fingers.
Yeah, you end up like hitting it with your thumb. Luckily my thumbs are shaped kind of strangely, so I can blast.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. So yeah, you just gotta roll with it, and then as soon as the song's done, you immediately change the string out. I don't have a backup guitar for Dead Hour.
Gotcha.
I could. I don't really have an excuse to not. I have plenty of guitars, but I usually just switch it out. I've gotten pretty good at it. Back in the day, it used to happen a lot when we were starting out. It was pretty regular. I don't know what I've been doing differently. Maybe I just take better care of my stuff now, but
not much of a problem.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, so when you're out there playing live, kind of the preparation you're going to a gig, right? Let's say you are out of town. Take me to that daily routine when you get up. Walk us through that.
Usually when I play, the day I play a show, I chill. They end up being pretty late nights, so most of the day leading up until we leave, I'm getting up early, I'm having breakfast. Maybe I sleep in a little bit if I don't have work or something. And if I have work, just kind of take it easy until the boys come over and we start loading the van. It's there's no like ritual really. I just kind of like take it easy because I know it's going to be a long night of close talking people in a loud bar.
Right. So, what about in terms of, do you get nervous anymore? I mean, is that a thing with you?
No, I don't really get like anxious about playing. Some nights I'm a little stiffer than others. It's always good to be loose, physically, especially a band like Dead Hour Noise. A lot of these songs are written to be like easy enough to play so you can throw yourself around on stage. So sometimes, you're just like, oh man, maybe I didn't drink enough water today or something. Like when I ended up dropping my pick, you cramp up a little bit. It is like a physical, it's kind of a sprint.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you're pretty active on stage, right? I mean, that's part of you're a physical player.
I think so. I think so.
You get into it and you move around. You're not just standing there. So there is that part of it. It's got a little athleticism to it.
Yeah, you're pretty sweaty at the end. It isn't just the lights. I've been trying to chill out more. At least like stand on 2 feet, and there's certain parts that, and like some of the new songs we're playing, there are some more like kind of dialed back sections. So you got to be conscious of what you're doing physically on stage while you're playing, and still play the song correct.
Right. Now let's talk about your guitar tuning. Just tell me, what are some of the tunings you use, whether they're on live stage or in the studio?
Dead Hour is all drop A sharp.
Okay.
So drop B flat. It's a drop tuning. It's easy bar power chords. It's pretty low.
So explain the drop to people that maybe aren't musicians. Kind of explain the best you can. What does that really mean?
You pretty much open up the bottom string so you can hit a chord, like a full step below what it would normally be tuned at the end. It does kind of give you an advantage for playing fast, heavy parts that have a lot of syncopation. With the power chords on a standard tuned guitar, you can still do it, but it's kind of a pain.
Yeah.
In Anvil Crawler, I kind of go back and forth, but Dead Hour is all drop tuning. It's all, you can do it with 2 fingers most of these songs.
Yeah. So what's your practice routine as a guitar player? Is it daily? Take me through
It's not so daily.
Okay.
It's usually twice a week we get together to jam. Most of the time, lately, I'm practicing with the drummer, with Nick. When I'm on my best, I try to play like an hour a day.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, at least an hour. But I just, I've had some stuff going on lately. Just moved into a house, been getting that around.
Sure. What's a breakthrough as a guitar player that you had, whether it's recently, or what was the kind of the last thing where you just challenge yourself technically and you feel like, wow, I took my level to my guitar playing to another level? Do you remember that?
Definitely like expanding my chord library, I guess. That's the main thing I practice mostly. I'm trying to get like a wider range of like jazzy chords. Technique-wise, I'm pretty like straightforward, like pentatonic blues, lead guitar playing. I don't do any like, sweep picking or any of that, like tapping or any of that stuff.
Sure.
I've always been like a rock and roll dude.
Right.
So when it comes to that, I kind of like reached a point like 10 years ago where I feel like I'm getting all this out. I'm getting all out of this that I care to, and it's mostly just writing songs now. So when I'm practicing, I'm usually writing something.
Sure. And let's talk about back to live performance. What is it that you really enjoy about the show itself, right? Just tell me, yeah.
playing the songs for people who haven't heard them before. My favorite thing in the world of like punk rock or music or whatever is just kind of serendipitously seeing some band you wouldn't have planned to see, and then it kind of blows your mind. And you know, we've been doing this a long time. We're pretty proud of what we do, and it is exciting to play for new faces in different towns. You know, getting out, playing around Michigan and seeing your friends is great too. Yeah. But getting out and you know, hearing people react to what you guys are doing, I mean, that's the most fun for me.
Of course. Now in the studio, I know every recording process is a little different, but what's the typical Dead Hour Noise from writing to recording? Is it like a 6 month process? Is it a year? Is it always different?
Dead Hour, so like we're entering the tail end of post-production for a full length. Cool. And we're going on about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay, so it's quite a process for you guys.
Yeah. Recording itself, that was probably about 4 to 5 months. You know, we do it on our own time in my basement. So pretty much we hammer out drums. I spend time doing one guitar track, then the other, and then bass. And then vocals usually takes like a week or two. Right. But it doesn't feel like it takes that long.
Yeah, we keep chipping away at it. Yeah. Sounds like. Now I'm curious about the bass in terms of the studio. You know, do you really enjoy that, or is it just you just have to do it because it's to fill out the sound?
Dude, I love playing bass, and I kind of really want to play bass in a band. I feel like I'm naturally, I mean, I'm a guitar player. I love playing guitar, but I feel like I hear like bass lines pretty well. So it's a trip to get to sit down and kind of relearn the songs that I've already written, you know, how I can serve them in a different way. And you know, it's something I kind of wish I did more, but I really only do it for when we track Dead Hour Noise. And I have one bass that I mainly use to write Anvil Crawler songs on. Dead Hour Noise has always had 5-string bass, so I usually borrow our old bass player Seth's bass, and you know, he lets me jam on that for a few weeks and just kind of let it rip. Nice.
When you're recording a bass in the studio, are you locking into the drums or are you locking into the guitar? Because you're a guitarist, I have a feeling it might be the guitar.
I think I try to lock into the drums, but like there are, you know, everything I do on the bass is informed by what the guitar is already doing. So like, I want it to complement what the guitar is doing. I don't want it to, and sometimes the bass ends up kind of taking the front, or it's, but usually like the body of Dead Hour Noise, it's pretty lockstep with the guitar.
Nice. And then in terms of touring, I know you've had some small tours, you've played around the state and Midwest. Maybe an anecdote about a story, you know, that people, you know, something interesting that you've experienced out there.
Oh man, we've been fortunate to play some pretty great tours and some pretty bummer tours. You know, sometimes like when you're going out, you really have no idea what you're getting into, and you can be like very pleasantly surprised, or you know, you can be let down, and it's a learning experience. At first, we had no idea what we were doing, and there was one time where we had a show booked. It was the day I was leaving for tour, and we had a show get a hold of us in Pittsburgh, and they said, "Hey, we decided that it was a festival. We were playing this festival in Pittsburgh, and that's really all I knew about it." And then the day we were leaving, they messaged me and said, "Hey, we decided we're not going to have live drums." I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I don't know. I guess it's great that we didn't end up playing that, because I don't know what else was going on there. But I immediately just kind of happened to see some friends from Flint were going down to this grindcore festival in Dayton, Ohio, and they had announced that a band dropped off of it, and I messaged the guys, immediately got back to me, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys can play." Like while we were like leaving town.
Oh, man.
So that was kind of like an Indiana Jones moment. Like, all right, we saved the tour.
Yeah, you did it though.
There's not a day off.
That is funny.
But we're pretty like, we're pretty boring on tour. You know, by the time we really got to go out, we were, you know, in our 30s. Definitely sleeping in the van a little bit and crashing at people's houses. But when we were like, you know, in our early 20s, you know, you learn that, like, you know, staying up late drinking and then driving 6 hours sucks.
Yeah.
And so we kind of keep it pretty pro, I think. We're
Pace yourself.
we're
now.
all, yeah, we get hotel rooms, we go to bed. So yeah, it's not a super wild lifestyle
That's
for us.
okay. Nothing wrong with that. So I want to talk about some of your influences. I see you got Guns N' Roses. I've known you a long time, and I know
Yeah.
Slash is one of your heroes.
Oh yeah.
So is that your number one guy influence?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, talk about how that helped you guide you through your.
So yeah, Guns N' Roses was definitely my like gateway into rock music, and you know they have a ton of influences that led me in a ton of different directions. So kind of always it started with GNR, as far as rock music goes. It was kind of the first time that I realized, like, you know, I had found out that I liked rock music, but then when I first like got a hold of GNR, I was like, oh, this is really good rock music.
Yeah.
You know, Axl has an interesting voice. It was unusual. And Slash, just like everything that he played, you know, like he was obviously an impressive guitar player, but his leads, you know, have a ton of meaning too.
The tone.
Yeah. And the tone, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Appetite for Destruction tone is definitely been why I'm drawn to the Marshalls and the Gibsons.
I understand that. I saw you at a Guns N' Roses show a few years ago. We were down in Comerica. Yeah.
I did run into you there.
Yeah, we were
wow, that was an awesome show.
It was a great show.
That was
when they reunited.
Yeah. Oh my God! And since then, it sounds like it's been pretty rough.
We caught him at a good time.
Axl sounded good at that show. I tell everybody, I was like, man, they were, and like when you know, my buddy Cody, who used to play with us, he got a hold of me and he was like, dude, we gotta go see GNR. And like I had already seen him on their reunion in 2016. It wasn't like a high priority thing for me, and I was like, yeah, dude, it'd be cool to go see GNR together. Like, yeah, it'll be fun. And then like we were kind of like beside ourselves. Like our jaw was on the floor. Like, oh my God, this is incredible.
They were great. Yeah, they were. That was
a sweet
show. Yeah. But yeah, so that's any other influences? Big one. I mean, that's a huge one.
So I mean, when it comes to lead playing, Slash, David Gilmour, Mark Knopfler.
You're naming some great ones.
Oh yeah, I just, you know, guys who, you know, like their phrasing, like it really feels like they're like saying something when they're doing a lead, and it isn't just. You know, they're not just going nuts.
It's interesting you said Knopfler and Gilmour, because in the mid '80s, I actually got to see them both. I saw Dire Straits tour, and I had like third row at Pine Knob, and then I had Gilmour toured solo that same year, so I was like fourth row. And I mean, Gilmour is one of my favorite. Well, they're all my favorites that you just mentioned, but to be 10 feet away from Gilmour, see him play for a couple hours.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Those guys. That's everything I want to do with a lead guitar. That's where, you know, I was with those guys in mind.
Great.
And then with the heavier stuff, I got into. I started getting heavier music in high school. Started kind of craving it more, but then I found myself drawn to the more kind of like. The more like interesting heavy, like where it's, you know, they're not just, I don't know, they're not just like riffing. They're like, they're doing these wild like time signatures and like different kind of runs. The first guy who caught my ear doing that stuff was Thomas Arek from The Fall of Troy.
Nice.
And then that kind of led me to Cody Valdolato from the Blood Brothers and Adam Fisher from Fear Before the March in Flames. So those guys, they're like, it's like heavy, but it's all rooted in rock music. Yeah. It's all rooted in like, you know, the stuff that I grew up loving. And so there's like a familiarity there, but it was also fresh and new and exciting in different ways that, I felt like, oh man, this must have been what like the old dudes loved when they were seeing like, all the classic rock bands that I was listening to. So
Guys like me. Got to see them all.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that was definitely like the generation of the guitar players that influenced, everything I do in Dead Hour and still in Anvil Crawler too.
Well, I really appreciate you being here today. It's been great to catch up, see you, and talk guitar, because we both love guitar. And I'm really proud to see you over the years develop. You're one of my favorite guitar players.
Oh, damn.
I've always loved watching you play live and perform. So
thanks, man. I appreciate it. It means a lot coming from you.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Ed.
Dude, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.